Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the last day of the DataMark Virtual Public Safety Conference. I'm Jason Bivens. I'm the Director of Business Development for the DataMark team. Just to recap a little bit about day 4 of the conference, there were over 742 participants across the 7 sessions yesterday, which means there were an average of 106 of you in any given session, which is awesome. That's the highest attended event for yesterday was the top 5 NG911 GIS data validations at 142 participants. And we'd really like to thank our conference sponsor that provided content yesterday, Esri, and our governmental partners that provided a great panel and content as well. We have another really packed day for you, starting with a keynote on triumph through struggle, followed by creating transformation through leadership and communication. Other topics include GIS basics for public safety personnel, a panel discussion on QA tips, tricks and best practices to reduce risk, and then on to best practices for implementing an NG911 GIS strategic plan. And then the last presentation of the conference, one size does not fit all, working with NG911 data across Arizona. And then the very last thing at 1:30 is a closing bash where we'll recap the week, show you the power of data, and most importantly, give away several prizes, including Amazon Dots, handmade flag challenge coin holders, and several other items like polo shirts. But you have to be there to win. So you have to be in the presentation to win those prizes. Before we begin, I'd like to let everyone know that the webinar is being recorded and all attendees have been muted for quality assurance purposes. If you do have a question, at the bottom of your screen, there's a QA button, and you feel free to click on that, and we will answer your questions toward the end of the presentation. I do want to introduce another moderator, Stephanie McCallett. She's going to finish the session with Ricardo today, as my session's next, so I'll be jumping over there. All right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Ricardo Martinez, who is a former 911 dispatcher and the creator and host of Within the Trenches and the I Am 911 movement. He's also the Director of Communications for InDigital, who's a 911 solutions company out of Indiana. He provided an amazing presentation for us on Tuesday called I Am 911, The Power of Storytelling. And in case you missed it, it'll be posted on YouTube next week for viewing. Today, he'll be speaking on Triumph Through Struggle. Welcome, Ricardo, and thanks for being here today. Take it away.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone for attending this session. This is Triumph Through Struggle. This is actually the very first time that I am going to be doing this session. So I'm a little nervous, but we're here and we're going to get this done because truly we can reach triumph through the struggles that we go through. And I want to look at this description of this session because really, when I was typing this up, it really reflects what it is that we are going to be going through. So I'm just going to kind of read through this, and I hope that you're able to take something from this, all of this that we're going to be talking about this morning. So imagine sitting at your console. It has been a busy morning, but you're rolling with the punches, as we usually do, right, in dispatch. You've taken domestics, given CPR, taken alarm calls, answered the radio, typed in the complaint, and all of this you've done just in several minutes. That's the way it happens, right? Everything stacks up over and over and over, but you get it done. You get through it. You're a seasoned dispatcher. So you and your crew, you work like a well-oiled machine. And sometimes when that happens, you can feel it, right? Everything is just clicking. It's working out. But as you're going through this, you hang up the phone and the door opens. Now, what I want you to do, I want you to imagine you are the person who's walking into the center, and it's day number 1. The struggle is real. And in this session, we're going to visit some of those early struggles, and we're going to do that through story. Now, if you've been to any of my sessions, if you were on the one, present for the one on Tuesday, you learned a little bit about me. Some of the stuff is going to come out on this one, but it's going to be more focused on those early struggles and how you can reach triumph. This is going to be based on my experience. And you're going to be able to relate to a lot of this, whether you are a new dispatcher and call taker going through this, or you're a seasoned one. You're going to remember what it was like in the beginning. And also, it'll help you, especially if you're a trainer, to really step back, reflect, and look at those that are coming in and how you can help them as well. We're also going to learn how to navigate some of those struggles to become more proficient in our career and how to emotionally deal with this experience that is 911. So here's a picture of me. And if you were in my session before, I mentioned how this is a rare photo, just like those photos that are all over the internet about Sasquatch, the Loch Ness monster. Those rare photos. This is a rare photo right here of me being in dispatch. Now, this is also towards the end of my dispatching career. I had probably about 6 months um, left of my career. I didn't know it at the time, but after those 6 months is when I ended up switching over to being an industry partner. But at this moment, this picture, what's listed here as a seasoned dispatcher, I'm confident, focused. I might not, I mean, you might be able to see how I'm focused here. Maybe not the confidence, but it's there. Confidence, focused. I'm experienced and also thriving in the dispatch center. But this is at the end. This is that moment of triumph that you want to reach. Well, how do you get there? Well, there's that struggle. And the funny thing is it's kind of like how people say in order to succeed or reach a certain level, you need to fail. Because if you don't fail, you're never going to learn. It's kind of the same thing here. So can I do this? Well, we're going to start at the beginning where I was at. Now, I started out my dispatch career in Florida. And although I had some of those struggles, the majority of them came from the last center that I was at. And that was at Allegan County Central Dispatch. It was the county that I grew up in. There was actually people that I worked with that I knew. And because it was a bigger center, I think is why maybe a lot more of those struggles came out. So this picture right here is not my dispatch center. However, it actually looks very similar to my center. And maybe for a lot of you, for all of us, you know, in a certain way, they look similar. You've got all the consoles. You've got everyone sitting there and they're doing what they're doing. But think about when you first started out, when you walked into that center. Now, it might not be the same for everyone, but it's similar. And for myself, when I walked in and I saw everything, we've got these lined up here on the screen, overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed with what I was seeing because coming from a single station, small police department, we had calls that would come in that were crazy calls, but it wasn't to the magnitude of this call volume. And although the county is an enormous county, it was way bigger than the small city that I was dispatching for. So you walk in, you hear all the sounds. You see one of the first dispatching call takers right up front, and they're on the phone. They're taking a phone call. They're yelling out over to the person on main radios, different things. They're talking back and forth. Everyone is working, as I said, like a well-oiled machine. But you see that one main call taker who's on the phone, answering the radio, typing, putting in a complaint, and doing all of this all at the same time while probably eating. And it can be overwhelming. I know it was for me. And it can be like that for those when they're first starting out. There was also moments of just being scared. Like, can I do this? Like, I'm going to be dealing with lives. You know, people, this is real. People are going to be calling in, not when they're having the best day They're calling in because they're living their nightmare and you're right there with them. So there's moments in the beginning of being scared. Also those feelings of doubt. Like I've been saying, can I do this? Out of everything right in the beginning, that was one of the biggest things, just seeing all of this playing out and just eyes just popping out like, whoa, am I going to be able to do this? And you can. You just got to get past through these early struggles. Now, the job is not for everyone, but one of the things that I recommend is sit-alongs. I wish I would have done a sit-along when I had gone in there, but I thought, I've got that early experience, 3.5 years of experience. That's enough. Well, what I didn't understand was that, the call volume and everything was just that much different. And the way everyone worked together, I wish I would have done a sit-along. So that might have tackled some of these early feelings. But that's what it's like in the beginning, right? And then you move on. You move on to the training woes. There's those moments of uncertainty, second guessing yourself, trying to please your trainer, and then isolation. Now, if you look at this picture speaks volumes. This could be for anything that's going on. It could be just a crap day in dispatch that's going on, and you're sitting there and just looking down, just, I can't believe this is just nuts. Or it could be after a hard call. It could be anything, really. But this, I'm also putting it towards training woes, because for myself, and maybe some of you, whether you're new or you're seasoned, you have dealt with the same things. Training woes, these moments where you start second guessing yourself. When you're working with multiple trainers, trying to please that person that you're working with, because you want to be the way they are. You want to work the same way they're working. And I say this, I'm speaking from experience. I'm telling you how it was for me. I had 3 different trainers, and I learned how to do certain things from the first one, but then I would use those and take it to the second one. Well, I wasn't doing it right, or maybe it was that I wasn't doing it their way. So then you get into this battle between yourself and the others, where you're trying to please everyone, yet you're hurting yourself because you're not giving yourself the chance to figure out how to do it maybe a quicker way, a more efficient way. So you step back and you try to do that. That's what happened to me. It got to the point where, now we look at the isolation part, where I felt alone. And maybe some of you feel the same way. I felt alone because the way they were doing the training at that time was you stick with your trainer, you speak to your trainer, nobody else talks to you because you're supposed to be focused. Now, I understand that. However, it also creates isolation and that feeling of being alone. I got to a point where I told my wife that I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to get through this because nobody was working as a team. And if we're not going to work as a team, why continue? Like, this just isn't working out. I feel like I'm not part of this team. So I felt alone. And one of my coworkers, I asked her, I said, what is going on? Why I'm going to quit. And she's like, no, 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 please don't quit. This is just the way they do it. And once you get to a certain phase, then it's all teamwork. And I said, okay, I get it. But man, had I not reached out to you, I probably would have split because I had those feelings of isolation. Again, those training woes. Something for a lot of you to think about if you're trainers, on those that are coming in, how they're feeling. Reach out to them. But then we move on, because then also, there's also this moments of second guessing. We want to help everyone the best way that we can. But if something doesn't happen, maybe the way we feel that it should have happened, we start second guessing it because we blame ourselves, right? Now, this isn't even just for someone in the beginning. This is for someone who is seasoned as well. My last week in dispatch for my career, I had a suicidal call that came in. And actually, originally, it came in as a disorderly person. It wasn't until the very end of the call, when I was getting ready to hang up, that my caller ended up telling me, by the way, I think he's suicidal as well. So that completely changes the response, right? I had the person's phone number. I had all of his information. I immediately tried to call him and got the information, everyone updated so that they could go code to try to get to this person. I'm trying to call him, but it was too late because he had already run his car into a tree. But for me, I was second guessing what I was doing because I thought maybe if I would have done something different, it would have helped. But I found out there was nothing I could have done. All of this happening in the beginning, and some of the second guessing can happen when you're a seasoned dispatcher, but by sharing and by navigating it, you can manage it. So can I do this? Well, hell yes, you can. You can do this. And we're going to get into that. Now, this right here shows what it once was. Now, I'm not sure how it looks on your screen, and hopefully it'll look a little bit bigger on in the replay. But this is kind of like your brain and your feelings, your thoughts. If you look in here, there's, the perception of how you see things, impulse, your attitude, emotions, um, a bunch of different stuff on here, anxiety, dread, longing, different sensations and perspectives. All of this, you can get past those early struggles by doing this. And this is the road to triumph. We need to retrain our mind, right? And this can be done in really the way in these few steps right here. Again, everyone is different. I'm telling you from my experience. The first one here is mindfulness. And I'm just going to go through the definition. And it's a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment. That first part there is important. Remember that. I'm going to say this again. A mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment, while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations used as a therapeutic technique. So, by practicing this, you can get past some of these struggles that you're having. Really, this is focusing on you, acknowledging your feelings, your thoughts, the sensations, everything that you're going through as therapy in a way. For myself, I was one of those dispatchers who buried all of my calls. I buried my feelings. There were times when I would drive home and I would shed a few tears, but I'd suck them right back up into my eyeballs and continue on. I didn't allow myself to feel during those early times. And I would come home and it started affecting my family, not just myself, because I wasn't really sharing things. But once I started practicing this mindfulness, things started changing. I was able to retrain my mind and continue on that road to triumph. Also, emotional intelligence. And this is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. This is another one to practice, whether you're right in the beginning or you're seasoned, because we're always learning, right? And if you're a trainer, you can help those coming in by sharing this information. The emotional intelligence, being able to build that right there, your capacity to be aware of what is going on and to control and to be able to express your emotions, but also in dealing with your coworkers as well, how to talk with people when there's certain things that are going on. We're the best at communications with people, but sometimes when we communicate with each other, we suck. And this is one thing that can really help, especially judiciously, to not judge, to do this with an open mind and empathetically. As 911 dispatchers, we're empaths. We put ourselves in other people's shoes in order to help them because we want to understand exactly what is going on, right? We're calm, we're focused during the call, but in the back of our minds, we are there with them. And that is what that means there, empathetically, being an empath, putting yourself in one's shoes. And that's why we're so good at what we do, because we're able to relate. There's that human factor. And also to be aware of your posture. Now, I know this sounds weird, but think about it. How do you sit? How do you sit when you're in dispatch? Do you sit the way I'm sitting right now? Or are you like this? Do you see my shoulders? I used to sit that way in dispatch sometimes because there's so much that's going on and it's intense, right? You've got intense moments and some of you might be sitting like this right now and you don't even notice it. Just let your shoulders drop and you'll be amazed at how much weight seems to be lifted once you do that, because there's so much pressure up here, and that pressure causes pressure in the neck, starts giving you headaches, and you might not even notice it. That was one of the things that I had to learn, was to sit properly because I would be like this all the time. Or sometimes I wouldn't wear my headset, which was my own fault, and I would be like this. Don't recommend that, because that adds to those struggles. It adds to the stress. The stress leads to headaches. It brings you down completely. You just go into this blah mode. So be aware of your posture. Like I said, it's the weirdest thing to say. Why is that going to help? Well, try it. Put your shoulders down. When you're in dispatch and you're sitting there and you're wondering how it's going, throw your shoulders down, because they might be up and it might be causing a bunch of other stuff that you didn't even think about before. It's all about retraining the mind to be aware. So there is peace in chaos. There can be peace in chaos. This I found on Healthline. And there's a link on there as well. When they share the presentation, you can look into it. But one of the things that I found that helped me, again, everyone is different. Okay, let's remember that everyone is different. What I'm telling you is from my experience. So this one right here is resonant breathing, and it's also known as coherent breathing. This is something similar to what I used to do when I was in dispatch. Now, this you can do either right before you go in to the center. You can do it after you leave. You can do it after a hard call, if you have the time, of course, if you have a chance. For myself, I got good enough at doing this that I was able to do it while on a call. I would, if I had the handset, I would hold it up so that they didn't hear me breathing, or a headset would put it up as well. Same thing. Because during some of these intense calls, sometimes you're holding your breath, or your mind is clouded, high stress, those moments. If you're able to do this, again, this is what I did. You don't have to do the same thing I did. This is just something to try. Breathing techniques. And it says for this here is when you breathe at a rate of 5 full breaths per minute. You can achieve this rate by inhaling and exhaling for a count of 5. And what has been found here, and there's a link to the study as well, is that it can reduce stress. For myself, that's what I found, that just by breathing, that I could not only release or relieve rather, the stress that I was having during a phone call or right after a call, but it also cleared my mind so that I could focus that much more on the call at hand and what it was that I was doing. So there can be peace in chaos. This is something to try. Again, everyone is different, but it's just one more resource to help you in relieving some of that stress. And going through all of this can lead you back around to where we started right here, to the seasoned dispatcher. Confident, focused, experienced, and thriving, not just surviving through this whole industry, this world that we are in of 911. You want to thrive. And by doing all of this stuff, you can figure that out and you can get to that spot, that triumph. So as we're coming into the wrap up of this session here this morning, again, I want to thank all of you for joining me. Some tips and tricks here. Now, this will help for those who are just starting out. This also will help for those who are seasoned if you don't know about this yet. But one of the things that I learned early on that really helped me, not only help those in need, but to reduce stress on both ends of the line for myself and my caller, because we were able to connect through communication, was to bring my voice down to a whisper. So what I mean by that is when somebody calls in on a high priority complaint and they're hysterical and you're trying to get their address, you might be raising your voice just a little bit to try to break through them yelling that they need help. But your voice is just background to them. It's just background noise. If you bring your voice down to a whisper, it almost tricks the caller into thinking there's nobody there anymore because that background noise is gone. Well, not fully gone. It's down to a whisper. So they'll stop and they'll say, is there anybody there? Is there anybody there? And that's when you jump in and you get that information and you get them help. I know for myself, it relieved kind of that stress and panic of the entire situation because then we're connected. We're no longer separated to the in reference to them screaming and me just trying to get information. There's that line isn't there, that wall isn't there. We're now connected and we can move forward. So that helped on both sides by keeping them calm, also kept me calm as well, because now I've got their information and they know that help is getting out there. Next, be human. It seems simple, right? That's what we're doing. Be human. Talk to your callers and get to know them in their moment of crisis. Now, this is not gonna help, or rather, it won't be the same for every situation. But if you have a call where it's like a domestic or even a suicidal caller, this can help. Again, keeping both sides calm. I had a trainer who would talk to somebody, a suicidal caller, for example, and would ask them, what's your favorite music? What's your favorite movies? And they would connect and they would talk until help got out there. That's how you do it. You be human. You get to know that person by asking questions. At the end of your shift, take a moment to step back and reflect on the day. Allow yourself to feel, because it's okay not to be okay. And I'm going to say that again. It's okay not to be okay. If you are struggling, reach out. You are not weak for reaching out. In fact, you have courage to open up and share what is wrong, what is going on. And in doing so, you might even inspire and motivate your coworkers to do the exact same thing. And that's where it all is. This is my information here. And again, I want to thank you all for joining me for this session, this something that I've never done before. And I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed being here with you. Out of everything that I've said here, what I want you to leave with is the fact that in the end, everything that I've mentioned relates to one thing, And that one thing is you. It's about self-care, but really connecting with yourselves in order to reach that triumph through struggle. Thank you again very much for joining me.
All right, well, thank you so much, Ricardo, for joining us today. We did have a couple of comments in the Q&A section. A few people wanted to compliment you on your new lamp in the setup, and then also let you know that you have the dopest mic setup this week.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dana Lavelle says that she's continuously nodding her head in agreement with you. So awesome comments.
Excellent.
We're out of time today, but I do want to let you guys know that the next presentation coming up is creating transformation through leadership and communication. And once again, I want to thank you, Ricardo, for joining us 2 times this week. We're really happy to have you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.